Hi, on the Woodpecker today for the fourth and last part of my edge sander. I paint it and put it in place. I finished the third part with a working sander, but I still have a lot to do before I can use it. The first thing to do is to paint and varnish all of it. So I have to take apart everything that I've just built. When it's in pieces, I sand everywhere to remove the lines and stains that I made. I also need to cut all the sharp corners. Since the motor was in place and this was way too heavy to turn around, I didn't drill the holes for the adjusting motor support. So I do this right now. And here are all the pieces for the sander. Once it's all apart, I can see that there are a lot of pieces. But before I put the finish on, I clean all the pieces. When it's done, I protect everything that I don't want paint or varnish on. Next, I make two piles. One for the parts that I want to varnish, and on my workbench, all the parts that need to be painted. To paint this, I'm going to use some leftover paint from my Benza. I add a bit of varnish to make this a little bit thinner. But as soon as I spray this, I see that I've put too much varnish in it because it's a bit too transparent and I can see the wood grain. But for the first coat, this will have to do. Here are all the pieces that I managed to paint with this mix. But now I need to make another mix. This time around, I put 2 parts of paint for 1 part of varnish and add a little bit of water to make this thinner. Then I spray the base. And straight from the top, I can see that this is perfect. The paint sprays super nicely and I can't see any wood grain. I spray all the base and leave this alone while the paint dries. When it is dry, I sand the paint just a little bit to remove the little bumps on the finish. I spray the second coat of paint on all the pieces that I've already painted. Again, I need to wait for the paint to dry. The next day, I begin by painting in black all the knobs that I've made. Next, I spray varnish on all the parts that I've already painted green. Then I spray varnish on all the rest of the pieces. And I finish with the base, because it's too cumbersome. When I'm done, all the horizontal space in the shop is used to let the varnish dry. A couple of hours later, the varnish is dry enough so I can sand it to remove all the small bumps. Then I spray the second coat of varnish, but only on the pieces that were not painted. I do that one more time. Now all the pieces have 3 coats. The next day, I can finally put it back together. The first thing that I do is drill 3 holes into the drive roller holding the ring. With a bigger drill bit, I managed to chamfer the hole, so this way the screws won't stick out. Now I need to clean here so I can install my new sander. This would have been so much nicer if it would have only taken this amount of time. It has been a while since I've seen this as clean as that. Now I can put the T-nuts at the bottom of the motor support. and put the sender where I want it. But it's only after putting the fence back in place that I noticed that I didn't take into account this structural post of the shop. The two end tables don't have enough space. I need to modify my fence. The first thing I do is drill a new hole so the fence can be screwed to the cabinet. I remove the fence and now I can see the small hole the drill bit left on the table. Using it as a guide, I can now drill a bigger hole and move the insert nut. But now I need to modify the fence. And with this, both end tables have enough space. I can now drill the holes to bolt the sender to the table. After finding where I need to drill the holes on the tabletop, I drill them. I put T-nuts inside the case. And bolt the sender in place. Now, this won't move from there. It's now time to adjust the two bolts at the bottom of the motor support. And also to put a piece of wood between the support and the cabinet. And now I can reassemble the sender. And I don't forget the final touches. A little hook that will keep the door closed, and also a little bit of protection on the aluminum. Finally, I can put on the sanding belt. Now I need to take care of the big motor. And since this is a DC motor, I'm going to put the controller inside this box and the switch on the front. The first thing to do is to cut a hole for the switch. And install the controller. I'm going to spare you all I did on this box, because if you build this sender, it's unlikely you will use a 180 volt DC motor. But if this interests you, here's how I hooked up the motor. First of all, I'm using a 220 volt relay to switch a 110 volt AC outlet. Then the 220 volts go to the switch, and this switch powers the relay and the controller. The controller also has a knob to vary its speed. I'm putting one on the box. Then the output of the controller goes to a double pole, double throw switch, and I hooked it up just like this. This way, I can change the sense of rotation of the motor with this switch. And this is how I power my motor. But when I try to put the box where I want it, I notice that because of the way I build my miter station, it doesn't work. So I take some pieces of plywood that are lying around and make something to hold the box at the right place. Then I can screw the box to this support, make all the electric hookup, and screw this to the sander. Now it's time to try this. This is perfect. I wasn't expecting anything else. But I really would like it if, when I start the sander, my vacuum starts automatically. And since this vacuum works on 110 volts, I'm going to use a lamp and the relay that is inside the box to start the vacuum. So with the lamp plugged into the vacuum, when I start the sander, the lamp turns on and starts the vacuum. When I turn off the sander, the lamp turns off, and eventually, after a couple of seconds, the vacuum turns off also. This is exactly what I want. But now I want to make some stops to help me on some sanding jobs. I'm beginning to make a 90-degree stop. So after cutting a piece of plywood, I trace where the runners should go. I'm going to make them out of this piece of plastic. I cut them a little bit wider. It's exactly what I want. Now I need to make them fit perfectly. Then I drill 4 holes and screw it in place. Also drill 2 holes for the knobs. And as usual, I stop the hole after the point of the bit goes through the plywood. Turn it around and finish the job. And that's it. I have a 90-degree stop on my sander. This is perfect. Now I need to cut another piece of plywood for a 45-degree stop. I'm cutting the back so I won't mix up how this should go. And here's my second stop. I often use my sander to fine-tune a 45-degree cut for a frame and things like that. This will be much easier than clamping a square to the table like I used to do. And with this, my sander is all finished. I just need to adjust the motor speed. But it's not obvious because each adjustment affects the other one. And finally, I can use my new sander. Up until now, I haven't used it that often, but I'm eager to see how I will use it in the future. With a bigger sanding belt, I can sand bigger things. And with the end table, I can use the drive roller as a big spindle sander. And if I need a smaller diameter, I can always use the top table with all my small spindle sanders. I hope you've enjoyed these 4 episodes about my new sander. Maybe this will inspire you to make your own. I will leave the original plan link in the description. And see you soon for another episode of the Woodpecker.